People who have taken a step back and tried to view their lives through a philosophical lens are generally harder to fool than those who haven't. Thinking people are less likely to jump off cliffs like lemmings, less likely to be content with living in a cage. The wolf will always be the bad guy through the eyes of sheep, but sheep are rarely aware of their shepherd's intention to slaughter them all. Don't be a sheep or lemming. Be sovereign. That's a quote from Bitcoin 21 Million Divided by Everything by Newt. Forgot his last name. Good book. I like his books. And it just got me thinking about how true this is for everyone. So let me tell you a little story. I was given a talk recently at a mastermind about buying assets. It was a basic rehash of Rich Dad Poor Dad. I've been buying Airbnb properties in Georgia the past 6 months, and it's just like such an obvious, simple business, and I wanted to share it. So I talked about it. So I kind of reiterated what is a rich mindset, like what is an asset per the Rich Dad definition, which is it puts money in your pocket. A lot of people think their home is an asset, but to Kiyosaki's definition, it's not, because it takes money out of your pocket. And I agree with him there. Your home takes money out of your pocket. It is a liability on your monthly P&L, whereas an asset puts green into your pocket every month. Therefore, it is an asset. That is really the simplest way to think about it. Now, as it relates to this quote I just read for you, everybody was listening. They were listening intently, but I could see the glazed look in some of their eyes. It's fascinating when you observe this and you really recognize it. You could tell they weren't having an issue with anything I was saying, but they also weren't really getting excited about it, and maybe they didn't quite understand it. And this is what I've seen a lot when I talk about Bitcoin as well. And I think what it is that it's really hard to understand concepts like this when you don't understand the basics. If you haven't been thinking about finance, investing, or getting rich for a while, and I talked to you about buying Airbnb properties, even if I give you a very short intro into what is an asset, what is a liability, it requires probably more understanding, a bit wider scope in how to think about this, because otherwise you don't really get it or internalize it, or there's something that's missing. And I've seen this quite a bit. I mean, the reality is most people are sheep. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory way, although in some ways, some people that are literal just members of the mob that attack whatever the current thing is, yes, a lot of people in that way are sheep, and they're ignorant and they're dumb, and they're actually a threat to democracy. I don't like democracy, but let's just say to the United States, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Topic for maybe later. But most people are sheep in that they are just going to follow what's around them. If they hang out with a group of people and those people talk about something like Bitcoin or buying real estate properties, or they're wealthy or whatever, they're going to more readily absorb those ideas. And if they hang out with people that are poor, that are Debbie Downers, that have victim mindset, they're going to adopt those as well. People are going to generally do what the people around them do. And of course, now with the internet, the people that they also follow, which for a lot of people is just mindless entertainment and comedy and whatever, not real substantive, philosophical, or kind of success-focused content, because it's just not as many people are interested in that. I don't know why it is, but that's the case. So they were understand what I was saying in this talk, but I feel like probably nobody in that room is going to take action on that. Maybe even if they think about it from time to time, it's probably going to require them being introduced to this idea multiple times before it finally kind of sticks and catches them to the point where they're like, oh, maybe I should buy a property, or maybe I should actually try this, or maybe I'll set a goal of buying one real estate investment property this year. They just weren't there. And I'm telling you, I've observed differences in people over the years. Myself, of course, from my perspective, I've observed that the successful are generally in their own small bucket. A lot of people say the 1%. You could maybe say it's a 2 or 3%, but it's a very small percent either way. And then the rest of the people kind of do what everyone else does. Now, I've been somebody that has always been an iconoclast, meaning I think differently. I challenge status quo. I tend to think for myself. I mean, at this point in my life, I pretty much only think for myself, but I've always been very strong-willed and strong-minded that way. And this has always separated me from everyone else. The past few years of my life, it's actually made me feel a little bit more isolated. You could even say lonely at times, because it feels like people just don't get it, and I want them to get it. You know, those type of friends where you're just on the same wavelength. It's a different kind of connection and relationship. And I feel like in my adult life, I don't really have that anymore. I have some friends back in Florida. I don't see them a whole lot, But we are on the same way, but we are on the same wavelength that way. And so when I spend time with them, that's always just different than other people that I've met here in Austin. And the people are out there. I know they're out there. I know there's lots of them. I'm not suggesting I am even that much of an anomaly. I mean, like, even if you take 1% of humanity, that's millions of people, right? There's lots and lots of people out there. It's just hard to find them, right? You can like find them online, but then you have all the issues with being online, like reaching out to people and getting to know them, and you got to spend all day online and stuff. It's just not something that ever really appealed to me a whole lot. I don't really meet people online. I've maybe met a few people over the years that have kind of come to Austin, mostly through either Wild Foods or the events that we've done. And then things have kind of grown from there, or podcasts I've done, for example. That's probably the number one way I've connected with people online. But in real life, I mean, it's like non-existent. I go play racquetball with a bunch of guys, and none of us really talk about our personal lives. We just play racquetball. I work out alone. I got a few close friends here. Some of them are entrepreneurs, some of them are coaches, whatever. I know a few very wealthy people that I might talk to from time to time, but we don't really hang out in the same circles, kind of different. And it's just like one of those things. Like, I feel like in some ways I'm in this weird, isolated, the world doesn't get me position. Even though I don't want the world to get me, I really just want the world to get it. I want the world to be red pilled and wake up to the reality of how much of our modern world is absurd, and how much, and it's, it's not that the modern world is absurd. It's that, well, it is absurd, but it's what people believe is absurd, right? Because there's a lot of very smart first principle thinkers out there. There's a lot of Bitcoiners out there. There's a lot of these growing trends with the internet and knowledge, and there's a lot of creatives and artists, and there's a lot of good, smart, awesome people. I mean, in fact, I believe most humans are good, smart, and awesome, period. But humanity itself still moves in waves based on what other humans do. And that is the real thing that you have to fight, because what it does, any kind of collectivism or tribalism tends towards a groupthink. And when you have groupthink, by definition, you have bias and dogma that ignores truth, and it ignores new information that might challenge your dogma or groupthink or tribalism, because that's the entire definition of groupthink tribalism, is to not let new things come in and disrupt the status quo. And that's what bothers me the most. We live in a world that changes so freaking fast. The information comes out so fast. To benefit today, to really grow and thrive and be successful as a human and financially successful today, you have to have an open mind. You have to be willing to change all the time, because that's the only constant in the universe. Change is the only constant. You have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to be open. And this is why, for me, because we do want to stay adhering to certain principles. We do want certain truths that we can rely on, like certain truths of gravity. If I jump out this balcony right now, it's going to hurt. I can know that, so I don't do it. Right? But if I just woke up one day and didn't understand gravity, I'd probably get severely hurt, potentially kill myself. We need to have certain first principles that shape reality. And for me, it applies to everything. So first principles of money, economics, human action, which, is Austrian economics, basically, not Keynesian fiat bullshit economics. Understanding history, understanding human nature, which is the foundation of all of it, which is really a study of history / human nature. They go hand in hand, because when you study history, you're studying human nature. You're trying to understand why humans do things, the dangers of collectivism, of communism, of Marxism, of fascism, all these different things. You're trying to understand historically what has happened so that maybe we don't repeat those same mistakes. Yet you still have people that just ignore all of it, or cherry pick, or pretend they'll do it better this time, that are modern day communists, Marxists, and fascists, that think that more state is better, or that they'll be able to be the ruler that finally does it right this time. And what is that? That's human delusion. Every human does things and thinks things that benefits them. Always, period, full stop. Which is why so many cycles throughout history repeat. As they say, history repeats itself. Not really. It rhymes, but that's because humans repeat themselves, because human nature is the constant. So be sovereign. Don't be a lemon. Don't be a sheep. Think for yourself. Build your own group of people. And I would say my advice is, you will find different pockets of them. Embrace them for what they are, because they're not going to be the end all be all for your life. You're not going to find people that are going to agree with you on everything, that understand everything or see it your way. You're not going to find people that will even be economically on the same wavelength or ladder or have the same aspirations. That's fine. You don't have to expel them from your life. You got to enjoy what you can, because humans are humans. They're always going to be humans, and we do need them. It's like nobody's going to be happy being isolated and being a loner. So it's definitely a struggle, something you got to be aware of. Because if you are an iconoclast, if you are somebody that thinks outside the box, you're going to struggle with this. Like, you just are. Maybe one day it just will become more normal, more normalized maybe, to challenge our beliefs, to like openly debate and talk about things without getting heated, right? Most people avoid it because they don't want to have negative energy, or they don't want it to be combative or argumentative, because they don't know how to control their emotions. Most people do not know how to simply discuss a topic without getting emotional. That's because when your belief system is challenged, you get cognitive dissonance. Your brain is trying to say, no, new information, bad. What I know is truth. So anything that comes in to threaten that is bad, must be fought off. That served our ancestors for hundreds of thousands of years, because that's what you needed when you were living as hunter-gatherers in the harsh wild. But today is completely different. In today's world, in today's society, you are better served by keeping an open mind, not having any dogmas or too rigid beliefs other than maybe principles like gravity. Gravity, basic engineering, basic math and science, basic economics, understanding history, understanding human nature. Yes, rigorously defend these principles, but also be open to updating them as new information comes in, because we still know almost nothing about anything. We know like 1% of what there is to know. I mean, think about that. If there's a way to build interstellar travel and have an entire spacefaring human civilization, as Musk is trying to do, I think there's a way to do that. I think there's a way to put atoms together to make that happen. But we don't know how to do it. That means we don't know that information that's necessary to do that. It can be done. I mean, you could pretty much build a Dyson sphere around the sun and harness its unlimited power and use that energy to have free, abundant energy forever. There's a way to do that. There's a way to mine asteroids and bring back all the materials to anywhere we want. There's a way to build like massive planets out of steel, out of maybe elements and combinations we haven't even figured out. There's a way to build 100 trillion humans in our solar system and other solar systems and other galaxies. It's all possible. We just don't know how to do it yet. As long as we don't blow ourselves up first, we'll get there. I do believe that. As long as we don't blow ourselves up first, we will get there. Get the Better Human newsletter over at thebetterhuman.co. You don't want to miss it. It's good.